Eskom doesn't expect any load shedding today. Fine, but the power system is indeed showing some improvement after it was forced to implement blackouts just last week due to breakdowns. Now, Eskom says additional capacity was brought online from the return of generation units that tripped earlier. Lower demand at the weekend also allowed it to replenish its emergency reserves. Energy expert Ted Blom also saying that government lacks the political will to fix Eskom's capacity problems. It follows bouts of load shedding in the new year and maintenance issues at substations, which have also caused disruptions. Eskom board chairperson Jabu Mabuza resigning as well on Friday after admitting that he had failed to keep a promise that there will be no load shedding before the 13th. That's today. Blom also says that leadership isn't fully equipped to run the power utility. Well, let's continue that discussion then with, of course, Ted Blom, energy analyst. Good afternoon to you. Thank you so much for the time. No capacity to really deal with the crisis at hand. A lack of understanding, really, from the seams of it. Should that board go?
Absolutely. I was categorical when they were appointed 2 years ago and pointed out that they had no energy experience and no Eskom experience, other than one person who had previously served at the NERSA institution. So you've heard it. I mean, after 2 years, the chairman gives a categorical undertaking that there won't be load shedding. That's the most foolish undertaking to give if you know there are problems on the system and you know that load shedding is there to protect the grid. So if you are trying to squeeze no load shedding, you are actually putting South Africa and the grid at risk.
How much trouble does this put Andre de Ruyter in?
I think he's in deep water, certainly because he also, like the board 2 years ago, comes with zero Eskom experience and very limited energy experience and zero engineering qualifications, which I thought Ms. Godin said was a requirement for the job.
My question has always been, though, do you always need a CEO who's well understanding of the mechanics of the situation? So what I mean is, sometimes in a crisis, you need a crisis CEO, not necessarily a CEO who's well versed in the subject matter. You seem to beg to differ in this case as well?
Okay, so because the new CEO is hitting a crisis situation at Eskom, he hasn't had time to familiarize himself with the different levers that are available within the organization, the different dynamics within the organization, and certainly the culture. I mean, to give you an example, there's been a categorical cancellation of all Eskom leave in December. You heard it, I heard it, South Africa heard it. Yet, senior Eskom people are on leave during this critical period. And another example is that an outage at the weekend at one of the major power stations where dozens of subcontractors were present, not one Eskom official. Sure. How do you run the organization? So obviously there's a cultural gap between the leaders, the politicians, and the workforce at Eskom.
Yeah, it would be calamitous to have a complete shutdown of South Africa's power, because then to cold start our scenario with South Africa for electricity would be absolutely dire and would be extremely difficult. What's the worst case scenario, you reckon, in this point?
Well, the worst case scenario would be a meltdown and not a shutdown. A meltdown is when the control room is not in charge of the load situation. The load increases and exceeds supply for 1 millisecond. 1 millisecond, that's all it requires. The moment that happens, you have a system meltdown. You'll have generators flying through the sky, and you'll have transformers and control boards just fizzling out and melting. And that will take 10 to 20 years to fix up.
Whoa, that long. Then what happens is finding the correct leadership from here on is going to be the most important part and the most critical part. We then, let's just say, take out the board. It takes us some time then to find a new board. What happens in the interim? That's one. Two, the constant notion that we don't get load shedding on some days and we get it on another day. Would it be prudent to just give South Africa stage 1 load shedding, or even stage 2 load shedding, that is, for at least 6 months, to say, look, this is the case until we fix things and people can plan?
There's a better solution on the table. At Eskom, I've seen that proposal, and it is to bring in 5 gigawatts of spare capacity to be fair to Eskom and Eskom staff and management and give them space to fix up the situation. They have 5 gigs of extra power. They can take the system down systematically, power station by power station, and do refurbishments These units need midlife refurbishment, not patch jobs and scratchy maintenance. That is the first thing. The second thing is, the sooner we bring in an energy turnaround expert from overseas, the better, because the current leadership haven't got full hands-on turning around the situation. And that's an example. The board's been there for 2 years. Mr. Mabuza, who is known to be an excellent business person, he hasn't managed to move 1 inch on turning around Eskom. Eskom today has got 80 billion rand or more debt than what it had when this board started. Eskom today is more broken than when this board started 2 years ago.
Sure. So where to from here then when it comes to, let me rather ask, why have we not gotten ahead when it comes to the plan that you noted, 5 gigawatts of power that we can perhaps add on to the grid at this point, and exactly why we have been so lackluster in trying to get things done?
Okay, so as far as it seems to me, Eskom is still captured. It's captured by the politicians of the day, and they will not move because of fear of their jobs. They will not move an inch without political sanction. It's easier to do nothing than to actually take on the politicians at the current game. And that's why we're sitting with the situation that Eskom's a lame duck. And I take my hat off to some of the guys there who are still trying to do a decent day's work and are resisting the intense political pressure that's being brought onto the management of that company every single day.
So no political will here to get things done?
It seems like it, because even the president, with respect to the president, I mean, I'm not here to attack him, but I'm here to put the facts on the table. The fact is, this president has been in the Eskom war room since 2015, 2016. He's been in constant contact with Eskom people via his nominated chairperson for the last 2 years on a daily, weekly, I don't know how often basis. If his best team cannot fix Eskom up, it's time to call in international experts.
Why have we not gone overseas? Is it literally just because, as you say, political disfavor, if we call it that?
Absolutely. As far as I can see, and I said it this morning on one of your radio stations, Eskom has become a political football between the good guys and the bad guys and the wrong guys and the corrupt guys, and it's just been tossed around from pillar to post. And the poor guys at Eskom are not being given direction, they're not being given the latitude to do what is critically important to keep this grid sustained.
The difficulty becomes that ordinary South Africans continue then to suffer. We've just had the ANC's January 8 statement. They vowed that they would fix Eskom. If we were to put in everything in place now that we needed to, how long would it take to fix Eskom? I'm not just talking about the debt situation, because that's something else entirely, but really just the mechanics.
Okay, so what there hasn't been aired and vented up to now is that there's a calamitous situation on the coal supply. 80% plus of Eskom's power comes from coal units. The coal has hit the cliff. In 2016, I did the report in 2007, Eskom said they went public and said they will build 40 new coal mines to feed the coal stations 130 million tons of coal a year. That's more than 10 million tons of coal a month. They've done nothing. They haven't opened up one single new coal mine. Why? Because of political interference. If they don't do that, they are running out of coal. They are paying disastrous prices for coal. They're getting spec coal, and that's causing the meltdown on the boilers. So that is the part that hasn't even been fathomed into the cost of fixing up Eskom. Eskom needs to be able to give guarantees for at least 20 to 40 new coal mines to be opened up on an urgent basis.
Sure. Where do you do that then? Is that just regulation to open it up a little bit more? Or is that funding that then needs to be required from South Africa's fiscus to then pump into perhaps these new mines or pump in money to develop?
They need guarantees. They don't need the funds. They just need government guarantees that they're not going to be messed around. And that should be part and parcel of the modus operandi at Eskom. The fact that you've had board after board and management after management with no handover. Even Mr. Mabuza came into the Eskom boardroom without any handover. And he then said he didn't realize that he had to declare his conflict of interest. I mean, South Africa's energy giant, Eskom, is being treated like a spaza shop by this government.
Quick question to you. Would you ever take on a role at Eskom, even as consultant, to help out with solutions like this?
As an advisor, possibly, but certainly not as the person in charge of making the decisions, because I don't have an engineering degree.
All right. Well, knowing exactly where to halt, I suppose. Thank you so much for the time, Mr. Blom. Appreciate it. Ted Blom, the energy analyst, really joining us in studio, unpacking that Eskom story, should I say, a little bit more, and giving us some sentiment and thoughts on that front there.